I'm joined by Man of the Day and Architect of Economic Survey 2025, Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageswaran. Welcome to NDTV Profit, sir. I would like to start with a question on that survey projected GDP growth for FY26 in the range of 6.3 to 6.8. Now, what are the key factors you have taken into account, while pegging this growth, which is below 7%?
Look, basically the one straight answer to that question is that the global factors are going to play an important role. There are risk factors such as we have mentioned it, there are risk factors such as the potential for spillover into India from global financial market trends, etc. And in general, I think there is increasing uncertainty with respect to trade and investment flows. So we have taken that into consideration in projecting this growth number. And this is also very consistent with some of the growth projections that multilateral agencies and other private sector agencies have made as well for FY26.
Right. So on the survey, a lot of emphasis on the deregulation part as well. And in fact, the survey is suggesting states particularly to, get out of the way. But how government can ensure or kind of nudge states to sort of participate, deregulate, and make the compliance easier, to have a more ease of doing business, which could perhaps improve the business output?
The union government doesn't have to nudge them because several states are already on that path. And we have also shown in the economic survey that the business reform action plan, whichever states have implemented them very well, they have seen a good pickup in industrial activity in their states. And that is a big enough motivation in and of itself. That is a good nudge in and of itself.
True, but somewhere, sir, the survey didn't really touch upon the urban slowdown in the consumption side, in the urban demand. And, in fact, you keep reiterating that, first half numbers is a temporary blip and second half of the year is looking much better. But at the same time, FMCG companies are, in the second quarter also talked about the slowdown. Even in the third quarter, it's looking gloomy. So why there is not a specific mention there, and how government should tackle that consumption in the urban cities particularly?
The chapter on the state of the economy does have a discussion on the consumption trends, including in urban India. And I think what we have said is that there are signs of pickup in urban consumption as well. And recently, for example, 2 days ago, the government notified one of the important schemes it announced in July 2024 budget, the credit guarantee scheme for small enterprises. That will definitely boost manufacturing in the small and medium enterprises and hiring as well. And more importantly, part of the urban consumption slowdown is also a function of how private sector itself has to take a very hard look at its own hiring and compensation practices.
True, sir. Also, on the very interesting part this time that the survey is, making a case in terms of regulating overtime, working hours, saying that, overtime should be paid by the employers. But at the same time, private sector is advocating for longer working hours. So, kind of how you think that, regulating these working hours would improve the growth, would help in the overall scheme of things?
No, we are not getting into the conversation that is happening in the private sector about the number of hours per week, etc. That is not the point here. And I think there is no need to conflate or confuse that discussion with this. This is separate. All that we are saying is, again, from the perspective of small entrepreneurs, when they get big orders during particular seasons, they can have the flexibility of being able to enlarge the working hours and then being able to reduce the working hours in lean periods. Because several countries do take into account this kind of seasonal fluctuations in demand and allow small enterprises to meet their criteria of sticking to stipulated working hours per week over a period of 3 months or 6 months rather than on a every week basis. That is what we were talking about in the economic survey.
But you think, sir, somewhere this entire kind of system which is playing out, more hours into work is somewhere affecting the growth also?
I'm not getting into that debate at all.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, survey did emphasize again on the multi-prong approach as far as, ultra-processed foods are concerned. In fact, survey is suggesting to have a health tax on such brands and companies. Could you please throw some light on that?
No. We basically said we're not proposing anything. We're just saying that from the point of the governments around the world, including in India, we have looked at tobacco as an important health threat and accordingly use fiscal policy also as a lever to discourage the habit formation with respect to using tobacco, cigarettes particularly, etc. And that's precisely is the same kind of health hazard that arises with respect to ultra-processed foods. I think that is a broader message. The message is not about specific fiscal or government intervention. Many a thing needs to happen outside the government as well, and that is where I think things like front of the pack labeling and consumers themselves becoming aware of the connections between consumption of ultra-processed foods with not only with respect to physical health but also their mental health. Those are all the dimensions that we wanted to bring out in the economic survey.
Right. Right. One more important point has been underlined in the economic survey about the artificial intelligence, surpassing human performance in critical decision making. Now, this can result in a large-scale labor displacement. So, survey emphasizing on AI is coming when India is kind of aiming to build our own AI model within 4 to 10 months. So, what does survey imply here?
No, I think that technological innovation needs to continue to happen. That is a separate dimension. But more importantly, I think what the survey points out is that given the country with a large demographic bulge, a youthful demographic bulge, we need to make sure that we prepare the youth to be able to take advantage of this technological developments and innovations happening and breakthroughs happening. At the same time, we also need to be mindful of the fact that previous industrial revolutions have had large disruptive influence on the labor markets in advanced countries when they were going through earlier industrial revolutions 2.0 and 3.0, etc. So we need to learn from those experiences and try to smoothen the path of integration of technology so that it becomes labor augmenting rather than labor displacing. That is the broad message. I don't think the current state of the technology, although we acknowledge that it is evolving very rapidly, the current state of technology with respect to artificial intelligence is not there yet to be able to displace labor deployment extensively. But if we were to get to that point, we need to be mindful of how to prepare the population to be able to take advantage of these developments rather than be reactive about it. That's a broader message there.
Correct. Sir, quickly on the line that, survey also underlined a lot of, import reliance as far as, EV sector is concerned. So could you throw some light that how government you think should combat this and to have more measures to boost domestic manufacturing and, in the current scheme of things?
The government has been combating that. In fact, we have PLI schemes on solar components with respect to solar energy generation. We have incentivized domestic production of solar panels, modules, cells, etc., and they're already beginning to show results. The same thing with respect to the EV, electric vehicles value chain as well. So the government has been aware of the importance of developing domestic supply chain capabilities in these two priority areas. So government is doing that. At the same time, the pace of growth in these areas will also necessarily mean that for some time to come, we will also depend on imported components from a single source, which naturally raises certain concentration risk. So the message is not just to the government, as you keep implying in your questions. The message is also with respect to the private sector that we need to be probably doubling our investments in R&D or doubling our efforts in that space and also find alternative sources of supply, even if the cost is slightly higher, because we need to think about some of these things strategically rather than from a short-run perspective.
Indeed, sir. Last question on the agriculture sector, sir. The survey is talking about that this is one of the key growth drivers, and I quote that it needs to be freed, empowered to diversify away from water-dependent crops. I just wanted to understand. You also mentioned about there should be a private investment for small-scale farmers. So, if you could clarify those lines, sir. What exactly survey here pointed out?
It's already happening in other sectors of agriculture. In allied sectors, private investments are happening in the cold storage chains, in the distribution channels, and also it is happening in land leasing and contract farming. It is, for example, even farmer producer organizations in some states like Maharashtra, etc., which have developed a complete wine related crops, etc. So the private sector investments in some of these areas are happening already. And those sectors, those allied services or allied activities in agriculture are growing faster than the growth in traditional crops and grains, etc. And that is what we were alluding to. And we can replicate some of those developments happening in other related sectors inside agriculture in the traditional area as well. And that will boost overall productivity and its contribution to gross value added.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time for NDTV Profit.
You're welcome.